Tired of bumping into people with big cumbersome fairy wings at the Renaissance Fair? Have you struggled to DIY wings with wires and plastic films just to have the structure fail you after only one use?
I want to dress up like a fairy.
Well, folks, I'm excited to share with you the answer to these frustrations. Enter the concept of the at-rest fairy wing. Thanks, infomercial Hannah. Today I want to try and make some resting fairy wings. I have seen some wonderful small businesses create wired or plate-based wings that sort of swing down into more of a resting position. And I've also seen some crafters do some beautiful painted capes that are reminiscent of like butterfly or other types of insect wings, both of which are great alternatives to those outstretched wings that are not as easily worn. However, I want to try my hand at creating some wings inspired by the Tattered Pixie, whose store I will link to down below. Definitely check them out if you too are trying to solve your wingspan problems.
Not those wingspan problems, you dirty romantasy lovers.
Sicko!
Now I kind of want to do a trial with different solutions to this with varying degrees of structure. From what I can tell, these are fabric wings with a really tight zigzag stitch over the veins of the wings to help add to the integrity of the wing itself. Here are the 3 ways I'm thinking I can work this out. Option number 1, just zigzagging tightly over the shape of the wing. Should be easy enough and will add a tiny bit of stability to the fabric. Option number 2, using a tearaway stabilizer over the fabric, zigzag stitching the wing shape out, and then removing the stabilizer. Obviously, this will add a little bit more structure without completely losing the flowiness and lightweightedness of the fabric. Option number 3, adding a thin wire beneath the zigzag stitch, which would clearly add a good amount more structure and remove any fear of potentially furled wings. But it could also be a bit more noticeable as something that is attached to my back, and not in a good way. I really don't know what is going to work best here, but I do think all 3 are going to have their merits. So I'm going to try them out and see what I like best. But first, I need to figure out my fabric. Let's do some shopping. Okay, I just got back from the store and I found this organza fabric in a really bright yellow color and also this really nice maroon color. And I think these are gonna work really well, at least for this trial. I do have some more iridescent fabric on its way, which might be better for wings, but I gotta figure out which tactic I like before I dive into the nicer fabric anyway. So let's start with option number 1. All right, so this should be pretty easy. I just need to draw out a wing shape on this fabric. Luckily, I already have a fairy wing template from one of my very first videos available for purchase on my website if you're interested. I might have to make some small adjustments to it to make it a little thinner of a shape because those are very big wings. And the idea is to keep them from being bulky. So maybe I'll play around with that and print it out and then we can get to tracing.
Even after taking the time to reduce the width of the wing, I realized that I never actually changed the layout of the structural veins before printing. So I ended up only using the template for the general shape before winging it on the placement of the structural veins. Since I didn't have any other way to provide structure to this slippery fabric while I used my free motion presser foot to lay down the zigzag stitches, I used an embroidery hoop. I ended up getting frustrated though with all the stopping and starting, so I eventually gave up and just kind of trusted myself to keep things taut with my hands while I stitched, which in the end seemed to work out fine enough. All right, now that this is all sewn, I think I'm going to, instead of using scissors to cut this off for fear of, cutting through the stitches, I think I'm going to use my cautery pen that I used for some of my leatherworking stuff to cut off this excess fabric outside of the wing.
Honestly, not that bad. Like, this is holding its shape. Also, I finally got my hair extensions to match my hair, so I'm ready to be a mermaid-esque problem for the rest of summer, but let's stay focused on Faye. I really do feel like these have no business being as structured as they are. I was not planning on being able to exclusively rely on the strength of the zigzag stitch, but you know, these aren't half bad. But if I'm being honest, it's really kind of giving me hope for the other two alternatives I'm looking to try out. So the stabilizer and then the wire reinforced. I'm particularly looking forward to the stabilizer method, being able to draw directly onto the stabilizer versus drawing onto the fabric. I do think I did a pretty good job covering up any of the marks on the fabric. So it's not like it was a problem, but it was something I just like had to be extra conscious of versus anything that accidentally doesn't end up under a zigzag stitch with the tearaway stabilizer. I can just tear it away. I am still feeling very pleased with these. They are bringing me so much joy, and I don't think I can wait a second longer to give the other options a try. So let's get to tracing.
So this set of wings was pretty much the same process, except I traced out my wings on this tearaway stabilizer first, which was a lot easier to use a marker on compared to tracing directly onto the organza. I then stitched down my fabric to keep it in place while I came back through and, again, used a really tight zigzag stitch to follow the wing pattern. I had a lot of confidence in this method, so I started off with using my fancy metallic gold embroidery thread, which I thought would elevate the overall wing look. Once I finished the stitching along the outer edge of the wings, I decided to remove the excess stabilizer, mostly just to make it easier to move the wings underneath the machine. I maybe sacrificed some of the stability while stitching as a result, but once again, it all worked out. For other wings I made with this method, I was sure to use less stabilizer around the wings so that it was easier to manipulate throughout the whole process, and I could just wait until the end to remove all of the stabilizer at once. I really like how using this cautery pen kind of essentially like melts the, oh man. I didn't leave a little tab at the end so that I could make the piece that is used to connect it to your body or with a magnet or pin it to your bodice or whatever. I can sew something on, but shoot. I should have included that in my fairy wing template so I wouldn't forget. Okay, well these wings are just gonna have sewn on tabs. Back to what I was saying, I don't know if you can really tell, but the cautery pen kind of like melts the organza essentially like around the stitches so that they are more likely to stay in place. Just a little extra reinforcement. So I feel pretty good about that. These wings with the tearaway stabilizer. It's feeling terrible right now because it leaves a little bit of residue, but you can kind of see, especially on this side, the tearaway stabilizer kind of peeking through from the zigzag stitches. That's kind of annoying, and definitely I would file that under being a downside to using the tearaway stabilizer, but so far so good on the actual structure of the wing. I'm gonna keep pushing forward and get the other wing done, add the tabs, and then we'll have our second set done. I don't know what the deal is, but my machine has just started to refuse to work with this thread. I got through like
an entire wing, and then I realized that I did this wing backwards after spending hours trying to get my machine to work with it, and it's just, I gotta know when to give up. So I'm going to start this whole process over. It genuinely is going really fast. I don't have to worry about working with the embroidery hoop to like keep things taut because I'm using the tearaway stabilizer. So other than working with the like actual gold thread, everything's going really well. And I'm really loving the difference in stability here with this wing. So I think the stabilizer is making a difference, even though it's just like such a small amount. It's Thursday. I need to be done by Saturday morning, ideally Friday night. So I think I'm going to redo this wing with like a goldenrod colored thread rather than an actual gold thread, which is very frustrating because I love just like the shimmer on this. Then I'm going to test wing option number 3 with the wired support, and we'll see where that takes us. But first I gotta run out and get some thread, so I'll be right back. Okay, these wings are done. I think that the structure that was added by using the tearaway stabilizer is pretty noticeable. You may not be able to really tell on camera, but it does just feel better compared to the other wings that kind of, you know, they've started kind of folding in on themselves and just are a little floppier. Still an option if you don't have access to the tearaway stabilizer, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably still go with the stabilizer as the better choice. Does seem like there are some downsides. The backside of these wings are just not as clean as the front sides, but presumably that doesn't matter. It's not super noticeable. It's just technically not as clean as a result of the tearaway stabilizer being torn away. I'm still bummed I couldn't get this gold thread to work. I really think that little bit of shine and little bit of sparkle would have taken it up a notch, and maybe I'll come back and keep trying on the other wing, but it's tough to get my machine to enjoy this stiffer embroidery thread. Either way, this one turned out clean. I can add a little bit of sparkle with the ribbon up here, and the organza has a little bit of a shimmer to it already, although it's not as shimmery as this iridescent organza I have for my last set of wings. I'm really excited to use this. Okay, so for the last set of wings, I am going to essentially do the same process as with these wings, but I am going to outline the wing shape, just the like outer edge, in this aluminum craft wire. This is an 8 gauge 3mm red craft wire that I'm honestly a little concerned will add too much structure. We might be looking at a Goldilocks and the Three Bears situation here because I do really like this, but I want to give the wire a fair chance and see what we can get done with it, because that's going to end up being a little more structured. And I've been playing around with the idea of like an armored fairy look. I'm going to use a black thread as well as this iridescent organza and see if I can find some sort of balance between like an armored look and a beautiful, pretty, dainty little fairy. We'll see what I can make out of it. Okay, so I have been starting each of these wings by doing the outer, circle of the wing, the outer edge shape of the wing to kind of give me that like base structure, and then coming back through and doing the veins. But for these wings, because I don't want to have to deal with sewing around my wire, I'm going to do the veins first and then come back through and zigzag stitch the wire down. Let's see if that works.
I did have to hand stitch the wire down in order to keep it from moving around while I zigged and zagged over it. I also realized pretty early on that I needed to keep my presser foot raised to let the wire pass through, meaning I needed to put extra care into keeping it in place manually as I went along. This whole part of the process was a bit nerve-wracking, but I got through it without a hitch. Almost. As I wrapped up the fairy wings I was working on for myself, I decided to gift a few of my fair-going friends, Erin and Leanna, some at-rest fairy wings to match, deciding on the stabilizer-only tactic as the best option for them. Once I figured out what they were wearing to the fair, I realized that the burgundy and gold wings I had already made would be perfect for Erin, and the iridescent fabric I had just gotten with some leftover purple thread already in my stash would work great for Leanna. So I wrapped these up late on Friday night, just in time to get to the Virginia Renaissance Fair first thing in the morning on opening day.
We just got out of the Renaissance Fair. A great day. We picked a perfect day to come. It was like beautiful temps. Just started to get a little bit warm right at the end of the day, but I had a great time.
It was so fun.
And this is your first time?
Yeah, and it was great. I really liked Virginia. It was really fun.
Perfect.
So cute.
Good. I'm so happy.
And the wings were so nice. They stayed on all day, and honestly, I didn't even know that they were there.
I think that's like
the best.
I think that's what makes these wings a little bit better than these with the wire in them is I literally just lost another one because it was structured. It kept wanting to fall off. So, and I started to kind of peek out of right where the wire breaks. It started to peek out of the thread. So final conclusion, wing number 2 is the better variety with the little less structure than the wire, a little more structure than just the fabric. That's the way to go. So if you make some of your own, let me know. Let me know how it plays out for you. And I'm excited to go home and make some more because it was a delight to make, a delight to wear, and such a fun little detail.
So fun.
It was a great day. I had so much fun. And if you had as much fun as I did, it would mean the world to me if you would like and subscribe. And if you do, I will see you in 2 weeks for our next video. Take care.